and the NCAA's part. And I think that if you would probably, find a way to help these kids, if that's what you're wanting to be, help these kids be student athletes and all that, you'd be willing to more help them. This is where you want to treat it more like a business, but these kids aren't getting paid, and that's why there's so much contradictory around this topic.
To be fair, the way the rule is set up now, this should not be a problem. Coaching changes, sick family members are supposed to be taken into account. But as we've learned through countless instances involved in all of the three major sports, it doesn't really matter. It's whether the NCAA really wants you to play or not. And that's the reason why this is a discussion. I think the one-time transfer rule makes a lot of sense because, the other thing that I just don't think people realize is, these are high school kids that are making these decisions. Sometimes you're going to make a decision that at the time you thought was right, and then you realize after a while, this probably wasn't the right decision for me. I'm okay with the one-time transfer rule. I think that a lot of people that are really against the transfer portal want to make it to where you're trying to encourage kids to stay at the school that they originally committed to. And honestly, I get it to the point you don't want guys that are going to go around and change schools year after year because they're getting beat out for positions and everything like that. But people have to realize the majority of the guys that are in the transfer portal, no matter what sport it is, they're in the transfer portal for different reasons besides just, I got beat out for a starting spot. They're in the transfer portal because maybe the head coach didn't leave. Maybe the guy that was their head recruiter left. Maybe in football, maybe your position coach left. Maybe in whatever sport, the environment just doesn't feel right. It's not the same as what they told you it was going to be. Maybe they made promises to you that they couldn't follow through on because they recruited somebody else at the position that you're playing, and they're going to probably end up getting more playing time over you. And they promised you were going to get to play. That's the thing that people don't realize is that that's how recruiting works. It's all about promises, and, most of the time they're not kept. So it's hard to really tell these guys, and you brought up the best point. We don't like seeing guys that change schools 3-4 times. But honestly, when you're not paying these guys, there's nothing you can really say about it. If you were paying them, it would be different because then that would mean basically you'd have to void a contract and all that. These schools are not paying these players to be there. So if you're not going to pay a player to be there, you should be able to leave whenever you want. You should be able to go somewhere else whenever you want. That's the way you've got to look at it. I mean, look at it as if you're doing a volunteer job. If you go and volunteer, they are not going to tell you that, look, you have to be here for 2 or 3 years doing this. You have the opportunity to leave at any time you want, and you have an opportunity to go volunteer somewhere else whenever you want, and for however long you want there. That's how you got to look at it, because that's honestly pretty much what these kids are doing. I know they'll say, well, they're on scholarship and all this stuff. I mean, that's part of it, but I think the thing that people have to realize is these guys, being on scholarship is not like getting paid. A lot of these guys still have trouble being able to get food, being able to get clothing, all that kind of stuff. If you're not one of the top guys on campus, it's going to be hard. And that's not going to change even with what the NCAA is putting in place for, name, image, and likeness. If you're not a player that is extremely recognizable, you're not going to make the amount of money that other guys are going to make. You possibly won't make any money. It won't really affect you. So I think that the transfer rule is something that is definitely controversial. Where, you don't, like I said multiple times, you don't want to see guys move around a lot. But at the same time, it's really hard to basically tell these guys that are not getting paid, look, you need to find one place and stay there. If not, then you're going to be penalized for it.
Yeah, I think we've got to come to a resolution sometime soon, because every year it seems like the transfer portal in the major sports continues to grow, and there's continued backlash for all the amount of transfers. And I think we've got to come to common ground that whether it's a one time you can transfer and not sit out, we do that. Because look at it, it's different, because when you're a graduate transfer, you don't have to sit out a year, but you still got to enroll in graduate school. You're still a student. You're not just an athlete there playing. So that's contradictory in its own right too. They've got to find middle ground, and I think the easiest way to do it is maybe that's what you decide to pay the players. Make them sign the contract. That way, if they transfer, they're voiding. Well, now you got to sit down and now you're not making any money. Maybe that's the step we got to do to limit how much of this goes on. But also remember that when these kids are committing, they're 18 years old. There's a lot of pressure on some of these. They're making a decision that sometimes is a blind decision. Maybe their parents are swaying their decision. And like you said, especially on the football side of things, recruiting is all about promises made. How many are kept? Not that many. You're going to want to leave, and that's rightfully so. So that's enough of that. On to a more fun topic, something that we've been doing on here the last couple of weeks. The Last Dance documentary aired episodes 5 and 6 last night. We're 3/5 of the way through this, and it's going by really quick. And last night's episodes were probably the least entertaining that we've gotten so far. They were still phenomenal episodes of the documentary. The one thing that we've got to discuss is there someone that us Tar Heel fans hate as much as Michael Jordan hates Jerry Krause? Maybe it's Coach K, maybe it's Grayson Allen. We've got to find someone that we can just center so much hatred on, like MJ has for Jerry Krause, because I've never seen a man openly hate another man that much in front of teammates, family members, and especially the media.
Well, it could be the guy that made the Dream Team roster that shouldn't have made the Dream Team roster. Now, still to this day, don't get how Christian Laettner made that roster over Shaquille O'Neal.
By the way,
Christian Laettner was a bum, did not do anything overseas, was absolute trash. And I mean, you didn't hear Michael talk about him at all, which clearly shows that he was useless. So I don't understand why he was on that team over a guy in Shaquille O'Neal that at the time was, you could argue outside of Charles Barkley might have been the best big man in the game.
Or Hakeem Olajuwon.
The fact that he did not go overseas was ridiculous. I think that's probably, if we're talking about most hated guys, I would say, Coach K is definitely, it's weird with Coach K, because I feel like with Coach K, he's one of those guys where we hate Coach K, but we also respect him because, it's hard not to. He's the most successful college basketball coach in history. I think, when you look, you can, try to make the arguments for Dean Smith with what he did off the court as well. But, on the court, I don't think there's really an argument. So you have to respect what Coach K does. But, guys like Grayson Allen, who, we heard was going to be this phenomenal player even when he went on to the NBA because of the tenacity that they wanted to make it out to be. No, he was just a dirty-ass player, and now he doesn't play, and rightfully so. And then Christian Laettner, that's another guy that's up there, complete garbage in the NBA, which was fantastic to see. I don't know if there's anybody else that's really on that level. I can't speak for the 80s. I'm assuming that during the 80s, there was a lot more hatred maybe towards State than there was even towards Duke at the time because of the success back then. But, those are probably the three guys that come to mind. Look, you say that he hates Jerry Krause, but I don't think he hates Jerry Krause as much as he hates Isaiah Thomas. I still think to this day that if MJ saw Isaiah Thomas on the street, he would probably flip him off or maybe spit his face. There is just absolutely no love between those two. And it hasn't changed since they've gotten off the court. Part of that is because MJ is uber competitive, as we've seen. I'm going to tell you, this documentary, I don't know about you, we came in with really high expectations. I don't know how it did this. I think it's exceeding expectations because I think it's been fantastic. You said it last night. Out of the 3 weekends so far, I thought was probably the least exciting. But at the same time, I still thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah, last night's were great. You mentioned the thing about how MJ didn't mention Christian Laettner. He makes a comment that I saw someone tweet out today when he was talking about Toni Kukoc and when they beat Croatia the first time they played him in the group stage, and he said that he was going up against 11 best players in the NBA. Well, there was 12 players on the team. The one player he didn't mention, we would probably read between the lines, was Christian Laettner. So that was MJ's subtle way of taking a shot at him because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that he was on the team. Maybe there was a reason that Shaq didn't want to play that we just don't know about, but you bring up a valid point there. Another great part of last night's episode was, and I think it was either Dennis Rodman or Phil Jackson. It's kind of hard to tell which one said it during the shot.
I know what you're talking about. That was Dennis that said.
Yeah.
It got confusing because they were talking, but no, it was Dennis that said that. Yeah.
Saying that he's not going to play golf because he's going to Hooters. That's the most Dennis Rodman statement that we can probably repeat on the podcast. That's phenomenal, and it just kind of shows the mindset of Dennis Rodman, even in '98, that he was just like, dude, the hell with going to play golf and hanging out with MJ. I'm going to Hooters, and we all know what you go to Hooters for. So that was great, and also. One thing that they hit on in last night's portion, which is very important into the psychology of MJ. I love that they spent some time to go into the issues that he has, not only has with gambling. It's still a issue today, and he'll say it's a competitive problem because that's how he'll justify his gambling. It's an issue, but it's a big part of what makes him so great because he could stay up till 2, 3 in the morning the night before a game gambling and then go out the next night and drop 50 on you and you wouldn't even know he was up all night partying or doing whatnot. And the relationship with the media. Everyone, well, why does he not come out and speak to anyone now? Look at how the media hounds him, and that was in the 90s. And that's why. You put him in today's media with social media and how the access to reporters have today, he would have quit a lot sooner. And that's why he quit the first time, as we for those that know the MJ story, that's why. Now we're seeing it kind of unfold a little bit more clearer. And it's just, that's what's made the documentary exceed every expectation because they've touched on everything they've had to, and they've given us deeper insight than we've ever had before.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. I kind of agree with him to a point. I mean, he's not to the point where he's losing a ton of money, where he's struggling to, be able to feed himself and stuff like that because of his gambling issue. I think that he's just an uber competitive guy. I mean, like we saw last night before a game. He's throwing quarters against the wall, and he gets beat out by one of the security guards. And actually, I mean, you could tell, towards the end of the exchange, he's joking around a little bit, but he's telling them you need to go back to work. And he was actually angry at the fact that he had lost a game of throwing, how close you can throw a quarter to a wall. So, I mean, it just shows that there just was nobody that had that same sort of mindset. The closest that we've seen is Kobe Bryant, but I mean, Michael Jordan is just a different level guy. And the other thing that I thought was great was we got something pointed out to us that maybe a lot of people didn't realize. Everybody always wants to point when you get into the MJ and LeBron argument because a lot of people point out with LeBron that Ray Allen hit a huge shot that helped him to stay alive to win his first title. You had the fact that Kyrie Irving hits the shot to help them in the series where they came back from down 3-1 to win that series. But, I mean, the thing is everybody wants to point to, well, Michael, he got the help of John Paxson and eventually Steve Kerr. I mean, we got a chance to watch last night. First of all, John Paxson could not have been more open. I mean, that looked like Carolina's defense earlier this year at times. Well, the guy was literally standing wide open. Nobody on that half of the court. Never seen anything like it, where it was just a miscommunication. And if that ball had not been passed out to John Paxson, if I was Phil Jackson, there probably would have been guys that, I mean, there would have been guys that would have had no